Good afternoon, and welcome to the September 9, 2019 Muskogee Municipal Authority meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum. Roll call. Item 1, please.
Consider approval of MMA minutes of August 12, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for the month ending August 31, 2019.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the authority, you see before you the claims, including our reserve for capital projects, and we do recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. That's the end of our agenda. We will adjourn the Muskogee Municipal Authority meeting and call to order the special call meeting of the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority of September 9, 2019. Roll call.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum. Item 1.
Consider approval of special call MRA minutes of August 12, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of claims for MRA for July 1, 2019 to August 31, 2019.
Yes, I will address that item if I may. As you are well aware, we've changed how we're handling our hotel motel tax this year. The council voted to move all the hotel motel tax into the redevelopment authority, and as such, we need to approve the claims through this body every month. So you'll be seeing this item every month. The claims are before you, and we do recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. That concludes the agenda for the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority, so we will adjourn that meeting and call to order the Muskogee City Council meeting of September 9, 2019. And then we have
Yes, our friend Janet is here.
Councilor Dan is here. Janet Webb is here to be recognized, and if you all will join me downstairs, we will down 2 stairs. Pay close attention. Janet Webb has been named Employee of the Month for September 2019. Janet has been with the city since October 2013. She started her employment as the City Hall receptionist and was named Employee of the Month for her work in October 2015. She moved in 2017 to the Parks and Rec Department as Parks and Recreation Office Assistant 2. She enjoys working with the people here and has a fun time in her position. She also enjoys making things happen within the community, and it gives her satisfaction that things are being done for the people of this city. In her free time, Janet enjoys playing with her granddaughters, ages 7 and 5. They love to go and spend the night with Mimi, and they love to have movie night with her on the couch eating popcorn. I wouldn't mind an invitation to that. Janet and her husband, Andy, are involved with their church, where Janet teaches Sunday school, children's church, and is involved with the ladies' ministry. Janet was nominated for doing the extreme and going above and beyond her normal job duties. Janet deserves to be Employee of the Year for things she has done for our Parks and Recreation Department. And I know Mark thinks of lots of things for everybody to do, so we know you've done well, and I would like to give you this. And are you taking a picture? Oh, get up here close enough to do it right. Do you want to say anything about this employee?
I think you did a pretty good job.
Oh, well, congratulations, and if you will go around and, do you want to say anything, Janet?
Keep forgetting to switch.
Okay, now I will ask you to stand for the invocation by Councilmember Jamie Stout, followed by the flag salute.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, just thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings that you give us, dear Lord. Dear Lord, just be with us as we conduct our city's business, and just be with us throughout this week, and we ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll have the roll call.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
And we have a quorum. You all have had the minutes from the August 26, 2019 meeting and the special call meeting of August 19, 2019. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. The consent agenda consists of items 1 through 6. Is there anything anybody wants moved to the regular agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, discussion, roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 7.
Hold a public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2781 for the local designation of the property addressed as 402 North S Street and historically identified as Alice Robertson School and Indian Bowl Stadium, or take other necessary action.
We will open the public hearing and hear from Ms. Callahan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a request for a resolution for our local designation. This is something that kind of slipped up, and the bond vote coming up has made us recognize and remember that we do need to recognize our properties here in Muskogee. And we had initially thought to do this, I say we, the Historic Preservation Commission, back when we identified the Sadler Historic District. But for this one, we're just recognizing the individual properties. It's the 402 North S. It's really kind of what they call the campus. On August 20th, the Historic Preservation Commission voted to proceed with the local designation of this property. It includes the Alice Robertson School and the Indian Bowl Stadium, and that's what we're calling them as their historic names. The resolution and designation, they satisfy the criteria on those 3 factors of the 5. The local designation of the historic district will document the history of the school building and the stadium and the significance of the school name and the stadium name. The commission will be working with the Muskogee Public School Administration. They're going to collect the historical information and artifacts about the school and stadium to be displayed for future students in the new facility if and hopefully is constructed. The designation will feature the further documentation of the history of Alice Robertson and the school named after her, the history of the Indian Bowl Stadium, and the history of both to be perpetuated for future generations. This is the campus area, includes the school and the stadium and the surrounding buildings, but those aren't. This was the old picture I found. It was the school. Alice Robertson was opened in September of 1940. And then I found a picture from around 1943. Fairly recent picture. And then the history of Alice Robertson and her significance. She was the first woman elected to Congress from Oklahoma, and she is only one of 2 that have been to Congress. She established the Nakaya Mission, which is an Indian girls boarding school. That developed into Henry Kendall College, which is now University of Tulsa. We lost that college to Tulsa, everything to Tulsa. She was America's first female postmaster of a Class A post office from 1904 to 1913, and she lived in Muskogee at a home at 1109 Elgin, and she lived there until she died in 1931. This was the current, pretty recent. It was opened in 1939, and it was architecturally, Indian Bowl constituted the largest football complex in Oklahoma. And so that's something to brag about now. The stadium was renamed the Muskogee Creek Nation Field at Indian Bowl in 2013. The Alice Robertson School and Indian Bowl Stadium are historically significant to Muskogee and satisfy the criteria required for designation. And the Historic Preservation Commission and staff recommend approval of the resolution for the local designation of the property addresses 402 North S, and support the bond, even if there will be changes to the building. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
We need to, is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak to this matter? If not, we will close the public hearing and ask for anything that the council wants to visit about.
I'd just like to say, Miss Mary, that was a great school. I went to it and graduated from it 3 years, from 7th to the 9th grade, and ran track. And then Councilman Reed, we got a little track meet we're going to have as soon as he get really better. I'm going to beat him right there behind that school. Turn the floor back over to you, Miss Mary.
Oh. I went to school there too, but I didn't run any track meets. And I don't want to make a spectacle of myself now either. So thank you.
She's trying to give you a hint, Ivory.
That's right.
I got you, Council.
We move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 8.
Consider approval of resolution number 2780, supporting the Muskogee Public Schools' proposed bond issue for capital improvements, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Prior to me introducing the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Jared Mendenhall, let me say that for those of us that have heard this presentation, many of us are more excited than we've been in a long, long time, because for the first time, Muskogee is being deliberate and intentional to take education to the level that complements the century in which we live in, that can help attract new families, spur potential housing development, expand workforce training and development facilities that complement our dreams of making Muskogee a place where people can live, work, and play. And without any further ado, I would like to present Dr. Jared Mendenhall, who's the superintendent of Muskogee Public Schools, to make remarks.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Members of the council, I appreciate you having me tonight. I really feel like this is an opportunity for me to explain to you in a very short 2 hours. My sermon won't be long. Okay, now, come on now. You're going to have to laugh more than that. I'm going to push this thing up. What I will tell you is this. I'm going to try to tell you in about 10 minutes things that I've been telling people. It's been taking me about 30 minutes, 45 minutes to tell. But most of us have heard a lot of the conversation about the bond, and the bond issue is for $110 million. We started this process back in October. I think the biggest thing that I would say at this point is that it was stakeholder driven. There were 31 members on the committee that really basically put this proposal together. We felt it was very strong at the time simply because we looked at all the data. You know, we looked at the data of the buildings. We looked at the student data that's coming to us. But more than that, really looked at the historical documents that we had that told us everything about each one of the buildings. In fact, one of your very own, spent many, many years, Mr. Johnson, updating and upgrading our facilities over the years, so we had great information to kind of go off of. And so it gave us an opportunity to really study and look at that. When we really came down to it, we felt like that we needed to make sure that we gave something to every single school. We didn't want to have winners and losers. We wanted for everyone in the district to really feel like that they're receiving what they needed at their sites. So you're seeing a heavy focus on safety and security. A lot of our schools will have front entries and vestibules that will be redone. We're looking at a lot of tearing out some classrooms, putting in new classrooms, painting, carpeting, tile, HVAC, roofs. So if you look at all of those things, a lot of those things are being done throughout the district. We are going to utilize a pamphlet that will be mailed to every citizen in the Muskogee metro area. I think there's about 40,000 households that will receive a pamphlet that looks much like this, and it will explain the details of the bond. So, for instance, it will tell you what's going on at your school, how much money is going to be spent at your school, but also what are the details at your school? What are those things going to look at or look like? So the inside of the brochure looks much like this. The reason we did not bring these to you tonight is that I have my communications staff member actually in Tulsa picking these up tonight. So we were not able to get those to you today. But I will tell you that we feel good about where we're going. We feel good about the projects that are on this. I know that the 6 projects are the ones that are getting a lot of the attention. So let me kind of talk to you a little bit about those. The first project is our Early Childhood Center that will be moved to Harris Jobe. The second project is really Tony Getz, an elementary school, will be completely replaced. We will go to actually AR. AR is going to be completely redone. We are going to Sadler Arts Academy and really redoing the windows, remodeling, adding 7 classrooms, and actually doing an area for the community for basically an area so that we can have an alumni center for the Sadler Arts area and manual training. So very excited about that. And then the last 2 projects are at the high school, redoing the front entry of the high school, adding on a band room and a choir room. Our band and choir has grown at the rate to where they can't even get into their same facilities because they are so large. They're practicing in different rooms, different areas. Same for choir. And then we're also building what's called Rougher Village. Rougher Village, the intent is to have it built across the street adjacent to the Lowe's and actually build on that property and build a stadium and a field house. So those are really the big projects. The others are receiving quite a bit, but wanted to mention those to you tonight so that you understand what those are going to be. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'll entertain any questions that you might have. I mean, I think that would be probably the best way to have somewhat of dialogue if you have questions or comments from the group.
Move for approval.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Tony Getz and Alice Robertson, same sites, different sites?
Same sites. What we'll do is, Tony Getz is, we're going to have to move those children and that staff off of site for about 12 months. The idea is either to move them to the current ECC building or to move them to the current Harris Joe building while that's being done. And then they will move back. So Tony Getz will be exactly where it's at today. Alice Robertson, that will become what's called a freshman academy. Move all of our ninth graders off of the high school staff or off the high school campus and put them in an isolated building to where they can get more of what they really need. I know that if any of you have raised a ninth grader, they're really the smartest people on planet. They think that they really have their stuff together. So what I would say is this, it gives us an opportunity to really focus on them and focus on their academics and make sure that they have enough college credits would be nice. High school credits to even get to the high school. So that's what our plan is right now, is to move the freshmen back to Alice Robertson.
Would you be tearing down a good portion of that facility?
Much of that facility will probably be torn down. We will keep the new tech building. We will keep the gym. We will keep the band area. But the rest of it is probably going to come down and be rebuilt from scratch.
See, back in my day, they made good use out of prefabs.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, the thing that is really interesting is we went through that building. We evaluated it pretty closely. And again, they've done a phenomenal job of keeping it online for the last so many years. But it's too costly to really try to remodel and keep it as is.
Sure.
You're going to see that the middle part of the building is we're going to try to keep it, pay homage to the old Alice Robertson. And then I loved I'd already spent some time with the historical group and council, and we're going to try to really do some things to pay homage to Alice Robertson and do the same thing at Tony Getz.
Thank you.
You bet. Other questions?
Second.
Motion, and we have a second now. Okay.
Need to make a comment. I was hoping to remain neutral on the bond issue, but since it's coming before council, I need to make a statement. I am 100% supportive of the school system. It is the lifeblood of our community, and I really appreciate the vision of moving the school system forward. But I won't be able to support this vote, and I wanted to let you know why. It's a 34% of the funding is going toward athletics. And I think one of the things that in the past that we had done a 10-year bond issue, and it's really hard to see that much in the future. This is a 12-year bond issue of indebtedness to our community, and there's not been a in-depth study on the indebtedness to our community over a 12-year to make sure that it can sustain that along with our transportation. So I just wanted to explain why I won't be, because I'm having to come out public of why I won't. So.
Well, and I respect your comment, and I'm going to vote yes for it because I think that it's the step that we have to take to grow our community. I think if we don't pass this bond issue, then we're right there on the point of the spear, whether we go one way or the other right now. And I think if we don't vote yes for this, then we're going to be stagnant for another 50 years in Muskogee. I just think this is the step that we have to take with our CIP and our bond issue to push Muskogee where we want Muskogee to be. We want to offer a better education. We want to offer better facilities for our students. We want to offer the best to our community. I want my kids to go to the best possible school that they can go to. They get a great education at Muskogee. I would like for them to have a nice building to go to as well. As far as the athletics is there, I see schools that build athletic programs and they boom. People just die to move into those communities. And I would love for that to happen here in Muskogee. I think this is the step with the bond issue. I mean, the CIP we have, this bond issue needs to pass to push us forward. I've lived in this town for 53 years, and I've saw this town struggle to be the community that we all want it to be. And if we don't pay for it, nobody's going to pay for it. And I live here, and I'm willing to pay those taxes. I'm willing to support this thing with every breath I have. I think, and I respect Councilman Johnson for his opinion. I just think that for us to have the growth that we need in Muskogee, we've got to do this. It's that step. It coincides with the streets and the sewage pipes and the water pipes and everything that we're trying to do as a city council. I think this bond issue coincides with that, and it moves our city forward. I like it. I support it.
Well, I hardly ever agree with Councilman Hall, but I do in this instance, and I think something needs to be said about the fact that even though that's a lot of money, it's not going to cost each one of us very much. The figures I've heard sounds like a real bargain to me. So, and I don't know who can talk to that part. Maybe you can.
Yes, we use bond counsel that they've used here in Muskogee for years, and so we're using the same bond counsels, and they've put together the data that shows what it would cost for a $50,000 piece of property. $50,000 piece of property is like $5 a month. $100,000 piece of property is $10 a month. $200,000 piece of property is $20 a month. That is also in the brochure that will be sent to everyone. The good thing about this is this has been very transparent. This has been information that's come out, I think in their bond issues in the past, they've come out 3 or 4 weeks before, talked about it, and voted. This has been talked about for a good 6 months to a year. I've been very vocal. I've gone to every single group and faced every single group head on to say, hey, this is something that's got to be done. And so I do appreciate it. That opportunity to answer that.
And so the people who have the most assets will pay the most, which is the way it ought to be, in my opinion. And thank you.
May I be recognized, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Mendenhall, I commend you. I'm glad you came to Muskogee because, like I said, we need this bond for our schools, for our children, for our future. Because I got one son who's in 11th grade, and he's got another year to go after that. And he's a straight A student. Never made nothing but an A. And it's like I say, this bond issue needs to go over because you go other places and you see other things. And I go visit other cities, and I see how other cities are ran. And just like you say, Jinx and all them other schools up in Broken Arrow, they're ahead of us. We want to catch up. We want the best for our kids. So I commend you, sir. And I'll definitely be voting yes for that bond issue.
Thank you.
Turn the floor back over to you, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Your boy takes after his mother.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll have the roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson,
No.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Derek Reed,
Yes.
Dan Hall,
Definitely.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you. Item 9.
Consider approval of resolution number 2779, supporting section 6021 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020, or take other necessary action.
Yes, this seems to be my item, and what it amounts to is standing behind the Corps of Engineers, I think, but we do have Kimbra Scott here, who can maybe, did you want to talk about this? Did you tell me?
I think Kimbra's by far the expert. I welcome her to the podium, but I do believe Senator Inhofe asked for a letter from the mayor in support of the National Defense Authorization Act specific to that section. And we consulted with Scott and Kimbra and people at the port that probably had a little better understanding just to make sure that we knew exactly what was going on. And Kimbra's kind enough to be here today to help us interpret.
Yes. I wasn't quite ready to sign that letter till we asked somebody who understood it better than I did.
So
Yes.
thank you for allowing us to come tonight. Of course, Scott is in D.C. representing us well with the Corps. They're having dinner this evening, actually. And I have a granddaughter across the street that's in dance, so I've got to make this really quick. But I will tell you that we have a great working relationship with the Corps, not only with the Corps, but also with the hydrology team. We work closely with them. We had a conference call today at 10. We'll have another one on Wednesday talking about when the river level is going to rise again. But with GRDA's singular focus on just the Grand Lake really puts the upper reservoirs in jeopardy. I mean, if the Corps has a mission, we know what they're doing. GRDA kind of does their own thing. So putting everything under the Corps is a good thing. And I'm happy to answer questions about the Corps.
Okay. Does
Move
any-
for approval?
Second.
They'll be really
Okay.
happy. And this is a great letter, by the way. Have y'all read it? Your mayor did a great job with the letter.
She had a lot of good help. Any discussion or
I'd
questions?
like to just say we did have a great visit from Jared from Senator Inhofe's staff, who made it very plain and clear in terms of what we needed to do, and Scott Robinson was there as well. And this is the right move to make. So thank you for your
Yes, we have a great
presentation.
representative with Senator Inhofe. We need to really allow him to take the lead, especially with the Corps.
Yep.
So thank you.
Anything else? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout. Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 10.
Consider approval to renew the funding agreement for local, state, and sovereign government entities to provide services between the City of Muskogee and the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality for a program called the Elysium Project, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin.
Mayor, members of the council, this is a renewal of an agreement between the City of Muskogee and the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ. This will allow us to do some additional abatements throughout the city on private properties as well as illegal dump sites. If you look at last year's program, we was able to clear 60 additional properties and dispose of 358 cubic yards of solid waste. The program will allow funding to the city, reimbursement up to $27,000. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd recommend approval.
Move for approval?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout. Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. And then we come to the part of our agenda that we ask people who want to speak to us. And we have Stephen Ezell has signed up. So, Stephen, you're up. Give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Stephen D. Ezell, 6121 South 6th Street East. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of this honored body. I'm here in my position as a state chaplain with the American Legion. And first and foremost, I want to let you know about our upcoming second annual Hot Dogs and Heroes Picnic at the Cemetery. Now, last year, despite a few pitfalls, such as the weather, which was cold, things went rather well. We had well over 400 persons who attended the event out at Green Hill Cemetery, which was to honor James F. Smith, the first Muskogean to die in World War I. This year, the purpose of our second annual Hot Dogs and Heroes event is to honor the legacy and the accomplishments of the Tuskegee Airmen, the famous all-black fighter unit that served during World War II. Now, to allude to something that Dr. Mendenhall stated, I want to commend the young people who, from Muskogee High School Junior ROTC, who assisted us out there last year and this year cleaning up grave sites at both Green Hill and at Booker T. Washington of veterans graves, because the most important thing we want to leave is a lasting legacy of community service and involvement for our young people after it's all said and done. Those of us who've ever served, we have Veterans Day and Memorial Day. This event helps to honor our young people who are willing to stand up and take action in our community. And, well, that's kind of thing. Now, I brought along my compatriot, Paul McKinstry, who will be giving further details about the picnic at the cemetery. But I will tell you this. Of the 6 Oklahomans who are credited as Tuskegee Airmen from Oklahoma, 3 of whom are actually honored in Booker T. Washington Cemetery. So, with no further ado, I bring on Paul McKinstry. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Oh, well, that'll be just fine, Mr. McKinstry, if you would like to speak to us now. And if you would, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Paul McKinstry. I live at 3301 West 46th Street South in the great town of Muskogee, whose education is going to get better. Now, I'm here, as Stephen had already mentioned. This is a photo of one of the squadrons of the Tuskegee Airmen, if anyone's familiar with the history of them. Now, there are 3 that we know of that are buried in the Booker T. Washington Cemetery on Highway 69. Here's a memorial of one of the gentlemen, Oscar D. Hutton, 2nd Lieutenant. This is a monument that was at the cemetery on Highway 69. The monument is missing. No one knows what happened to it. I believe, looking at the photo, this photo is 2010. I believe the monument sank into the ground. It's just gone. And I hate to see that happen in the future. This is something that honors the Muskogeans and our history. Last year at our picnic, and many of you received the tile that we had last year that was a commemorative, there will be another tile this year to honor the Tuskegee Airmen. So I'll make sure that the council gets one to go with the other. Each one of the tiles, from what the company has explained to me, will be like this photo here. Each one will go around the outside of the first one, and this monument will become larger and larger and larger as years go by. But by golly, it started right here in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and it should. I'm hoping that this picnic will eventually go national, that there will be picnics all across America, having started in Muskogee, Oklahoma. I've been 22 years in the Army. I consider myself to be a soldier, not a politician, so I'm not used to doing all this. And if Stephen hadn't coerced me, talked me into doing it. But and I feel very strongly about this. The other thing we have to remember, people, is support of the community, and that includes the City Council. The one big drawback we had to last year's event, and it was super successful, we are being talked about everywhere from Washington, D.C. to the state capitol. Tiles have gone all across this country from California to Florida. One thing that we missed is we didn't have an ambulance there. And I feel very strongly about this, not just because of an accident or an injury, but it shows city support. And I would like to see more support, perhaps maybe a police officer or something like that. But we're going to make this one bigger and better than last year. We plan on giving away, I hope, to 1,000 hot dogs. Our thanks to the Martin Luther King Center for their support and what they're going to do for us. Cakes have already been presented. It's going to be an awesome event. 12th of October, Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I hope you all show up. So we're just looking for support from the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McKinstry. Item 11.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. B, pursuant to Section 307C11, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to economic development, including but not limited to consideration of a proposal to stimulate housing growth and promote residential development within the city of Muskogee, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
Make a motion, we go on executive session.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Would you please excuse us while we go into executive session? Welcome back, and we'll have the roll call.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're all here. And Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 11A, pursuant to Section 307B2, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss ongoing negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57. After being briefed on the status of those negotiations, I believe now would be an appropriate motion to be made to approve a 2019-2020 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Muskogee and the International Association of Firefighters, Local Number 57.
So moved.
Second.
I'll acquiesce to you.
Discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Yes. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Mr. Tucker again.
Item 11B, pursuant to Section 307C11 of Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the council did convene an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to economic development, including but not limited to a proposal to stimulate housing growth and promote residential development. After being briefed on the status of that proposal, I believe an appropriate motion would be to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with the developer for a housing incentive program based upon the parameters as discussed in executive session.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Yes. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. That concludes our agenda. Good evening.